was so proud. My grandfather Percy, when we lived in Gertrude Street, Fitzroy, he lived down in Collingwood and wasn't so far into Collingwood that he used to walk up of a Sunday morning and say, "Is there anyone coming to church with me?" And I'd always be the one that'd go with him. And we'd walk across Victoria Parade, go across, and Dr. Agenor was because he knew him. My grandfather did, he knew Dr. Agenor.
I remember in Gertrude Street, Fitzroy, Grandfather stayed with us for quite a while also, and every Sunday morning he'd get up early and he'd say, "I've got to go to church now." Mum said there he's going over to see his relations, you know, and he did used to go with my cousin early in the morning on a Sunday morning. He used to go to church, never missed. But Grandfather, we had a lot to do with Grandfather.
Yes.
A lot, and all the family took him in after each other, had him for a little while.
And part of the policy of the day was any half-caste child under the age of 18 or 16 had to go into an orphanage. So in one sense, that was the reason why Percy was put into this orphanage. And we were I was shocked to see those papers because we think that Agenor may have signed him in rather than our granny doing it. Granny Louisa signing him in to the orphanage. It's sad. And that's of course where the indenture paper comes in, when he went from the orphanage then to become a chef, wasn't it, up in Lake Boga? It was almost like he was part of the stolen generation. He was losing his culture, he was losing his family, he wasn't allowed to have contact with his land. It was everything taken away from him. He left the bakery because one of his uncles actually came and said someone had died back on country, so that's when he sort of left the bakery and went back to Gippsland.
A lot of the young ones don't speak about families as much as we did. We were sort of brought up with it. And the more we learnt, the more we wanted to find out about it.
Yes.
And that's why we sort of went on more to find out things. But yeah, the German, that, well, Mum used to say, our mums used to say that to us. You got German in you, things like that.
And it comes together when Mum used to always say, oh yeah, Nan used to always say he's going across to visit his relations at the church. And now you sort of start to think, well, who's his relations at the church? Well, I thought I'd get a descendant from my generation from all of the Pepper children together and maybe talk about it. So I was able to get 4 of them to come along and chat about it, and we sort of decided we weren't going to tell the elders because we thought it might upset someone, or even if they knew about it, maybe it might upset someone else in the family. But when we sat around yesterday and were chatting about it, we didn't bring it up, but they brought it up.
Yeah.
And they were saying,
so they knew all along.
And I thought, oh, hang on a sec, we're sort of keeping this from people, but people already know about bits and pieces, but maybe this puts it all together.
Puts a light on it all.
Brings it all to context.
You can't alter the fact that these things did happen, and nobody can take it away out of our lives or out of
So you might have been too, I don't know, you might have been too scared to say something to us.
No, I've always sort of known. I don't know, just a bit forward, I suppose, with Mum, and what I used to talk to go straight out, with us. And I never thought of it really. But if anybody spoke about it, I'd just speak out how I feel about what I've heard, because I'm just straight out.
And now it's all coming together for me now. It's all
Because we'd laugh about it, we say we're like a
Yeah.
League of Nations in ourselves.
But now it makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
where it's coming from.
What used to get me in is writing, beautiful handwriting with an indelible pencil. I still haven't forgotten that. Yeah.
And you thought he might have learnt that lovely handwriting from the orphanage. That family closeness and the family knit was always there, and I think that's what Auntie Lucy was talking about before, with that family. We don't just have a family tree, we have a grapevine. And even though Cheryle's my second cousin, oh, you know, it's like we're still family. Whereas a lot of families these days are just your immediate family, where we still have our immediate family, then we have the extended family, and we have our cousins and extra cousins and mum's cousins, and their kids are still our cousins, so it goes on. And if my nieces and nephews come down to stay with us, I take on that mother role as well. So I'm not only their auntie or a cousin, I'm their mother. So it's just part and parcel of our Aboriginal culture. And you don't realise that that is part of our culture until when I married a non-Indigenous person, that I realised that they have so many different things to the way we do things. And you just take it for granted that, you know, everyone does the same, but they don't.
You get Aboriginal families, right? And like, they got their sisters or their brothers, they got their kids. We all live together. Like I've had 10 people live in my house, all at once. That's the way we were.
It's like Glenys' daughter, my granddaughter, when she was going to school at Mount Evelyn, and they were talking about Aboriginal people to her. And they said, you know, talking about Aboriginal, and she put her hand up, she said, I'm part Aboriginal. And they said, no, you're not. She said, I beg your pardon, I am Aboriginal. And the teacher defied her and she wasn't. In the end, she got up crying. She said, I'm going home to tell my mum. She said, when I get older, I'm coming back to tell you off, she said, and bring certificates back to tell you I'm Aboriginal. And she went, she's blonde, blue eyes, you wouldn't dream of it, you know. But she tried to express that she's Aboriginal. Even now, the kids, they still say I'm Aboriginal. People look at it the second time. She said, that's nothing. She said, that doesn't mean a thing. Colour. Yeah.
No.
What's in here and
What's in here.
well, they always knew it as the swamp.
The swamp.
Yeah.
That he was given swampland and it wasn't really farming land. And I know he actually did say when he was begging for the land, wasn't he? He said, you've taken my land away once before, this was our country, our land. And he was feeling, he must have been feeling like they were doing it again. By not letting him stay there. The main reason why they didn't want her to die up there and be buried up there was because all the family would go back there to visit the grave. So it's like a family tradition. She's buried in Pakenham now, and you know, every Mother's Day we used to go down there, and still do, to the graves to do them up and make sure they're all tidy and everything. There's quite a few family members buried even now at Pakenham because they wanted to be near Granny Lucy.
He's buried at Pakenham, and our family, when anyone passed away, they all want to be buried in one place. Like they'd rather be buried down here, wherever they live, but they still go back there because it's Granny Lucy's been buried there. No fault of her own. And my mother's buried down there, my brother, and my husband. He didn't want to go anywhere else. We had his funeral paid for to go to Hillsville with his dad. He didn't want to go there, he wanted to go with Ma, so we set up one for him down there.
Fitzroy was like, when the families from Gippsland would come down, it was like the halfway house, so Nan and Auntie Dora lived near
It was
each
a
other.
community for the
And
Aboriginal
it was
people.
a community there. It was like the start of families coming to and fro, wasn't it?
That's right.
And when they first came from Bensdale, well, Mum got this big boarding house in Victoria Parade, Collingwood, and then Auntie Dora and them come down with her family. They were all small, and we were all young. Mum brought they came down, they stayed with us, and from there they went up to Gouda Street, Fitzroy, and they got a shop in Gouda Street, Fitzroy, empty shop to live in. Then Auntie Ellie come down, Connolly's, and there was an empty shop there beside them, so they took that shop. And then in the end, Mum, Uncle Ernie Fitzclarence come down, and she gave him the house, he took over.
Corner, didn't he?
Yeah, and then she went and moved up there, and we all had the 3 shops along in each, right beside each other in Gouda Street, Fitzroy.
Because they were 2-storey then.
Now
stories.
it's 2 stories with a veranda.
Yeah.
Wonders.
Because Mum always gets a tram into
I still
Fitzroy,
go through
goes through
Fitzroy.
Fitzroy, you know.
I love going through there, but they were living Epping.
Like we told you that day. What was her name?
Oh,
Squizzy
Squizzy
Taylor's
Taylor's
mother.
mum.
That was
So
later
what?
on.
That
Well,
was when he
well,
was down the train.
Yeah. We used to stay there, Mum, and used to take us as kids there. Yeah, and we used to stay there, and another lady, Mrs. Scott, was a great friend of the
That's
family.
right, yeah.
Across the road, big home and everything, but Squizzy Taylor's wife, they were very close. Yeah.
I'm proud of being a Pepper. I'm proud of my family. A lot of them gone on to do things, and really made it in this world, which some people would have said, oh, they're Aborigines, they won't amount to much.
Auntie Lucy and Mum and a couple of their cousins, all of them, the parents must have been picking the beans.
Yeah, they were.
Well, and the kids were all just had a photo taken in the bean paddock.